Hey, what is up? Welcome to live stream number 52. Happy Saturday, November 16th to you. Boo. I am going to be talking about a few things this morning, this fine morning. But first, let me make sure to pull up live chat so that I can see questions and comments from the viewers at home. Whoa, I just bumped my head on that. Man. Shoot, man. All right, let me get my head in the game. First up, there have been some cool tweets going around, if you have not noticed, on on like the current where people have been summarizing their decade, basically. Like somebody tweeted, there's only a month left in this decade, and then they sort of did a tweet where they listed out everything that they've done in the last decade. Let me do a quick screen share. This is going to make a lot more sense. Ooh. Whoa, buddy. So anyway, so I did mine, and it was kind of fun to do. I'm going to go back to the video. It was kind of fun to do. And I found myself wishing I had more space in that tweet. It's also kind of fun to try to summarize your entire decade in just a tweet, and you can use emojis to kind of shorten things up. But I thought it was cool. I think that, there's that saying, we overestimate what we can do in a day or a week, and we underestimate what we can do in a decade. And when you look back over a decade, you go like, wow, like I did a couple things, in that decade. And so real quick, I'll summarize. I got into Magento from scratch, and I learned everything I know from Ben Marks, watching the training videos online. I still remember that. I was working a full-time job and, was sort of pretty unhappy, and was a project manager. And I wanted to get back into being a developer, and I felt like I didn't know if I could do it. And so anyways, I did that. Then I went and I worked for Sweet Tooth, which is now Smile.io, and just loved that experience so much. Had such a great time, learned so much from them. Steve Decker, Bill Curtis, all the guys and gals over. That's also where I met Sherry, who also did a stint there, and Antonella, Jay, a bunch of people. And so that was a great experience. After that, I had baby number 2, my second daughter, and I was living in Pasadena at the time. We had our condo. We had bought our condo just before the market crashed. And I'm gonna take my glasses off. I did get some new glasses, by the way. So those should be arriving soon. There, they'll be a little bit cooler looking glasses. So anyways, was in Pasadena at the time. We had gotten our condo. We were just barely hanging on to it because we got it before the market crashed. And anyways, having babies, popping out the babies. Started a service called Mage Update, which the idea behind it was to be a productized service for Magento upgrades. Upgrades are notoriously hard to do, and so I was wanting to streamline that, and I built some cool tooling to do things like detect core diffs against core files and some things like that, which were kind of cool. I worked on a couple of upgrades and was able to knock them out pretty quickly, but it ended up ultimately stopping it. Ended up failing because people didn't want to pay for upgrades unless they had a very specific reason. Like I remember talking to this one fairly high profile website, and the quote was like $3,000 for an upgrade, and they said no, and it was like, wow, this is not good. But I talk about failure like in the context of building a business, building a startup. Failure is such a huge part of it, and there's so many things I've tried, and I'm pretty sure there's like a couple things in this last decade that I'm leaving out of this list, but there's just, you got to keep trying stuff and keep failing at it. But also through doing Mage Update, one of the clients that I had was a merchant who I did some work for, and then I ended up working full time for. Work for my now really good friend Drew, which was an awesome experience. Loved that job, and had a great time there. So moved to Oxnard, from Pasadena to Oxnard, and then I started working with Drew and the team over there. Had a great time. Started the Mage Talk podcast at that same time with Philip Jackson, which is still chugging to this day. Started my email product, my SaaS email product at that time. Moved from Oxnard to Monrovia, also in the LA area. Around that time. And then around the time I was selling the SaaS product, I started Good Links. If you might remember that, it was maybe I should do a screen share for this. It was a productized service for digital outreach. It's kind of cool. I got to say how these Twitter, I'm going to switch back to the screen share. It's kind of cool how your Twitter accounts just stay alive forever. Like I haven't touched this forever. But it's still up there. It's kind of neat, I have to say. And that we did okay. We ended up getting some decent revenue. I think we got up to 10, 11,000 a month in recurring revenue, but ultimately it was just sort of we weren't like that interested in the idea at the end of the day, I think, and ran into some issues scaling. So we closed that up. Another failure. Sold the SaaS product, started Commerce Hero, which I'm still doing to this day, and had baby number 3 shortly after that. Moved to Austin. Bought our first house. One thing I didn't put in there at the time we moved to Oxnard, we sold our condo and just barely, almost pretty much broke even on it, which was a little bit, I keep hitting my head on this, which was a little bit, tough because, at that time when we bought our condo, we were expecting, all of our friends around that time were buying a house, selling it for $200,000-$300,000 more within a couple years. And we held on to our place for like 8 years, and we barely made probably like $8,000 total. So it was good. We held on to it. It was good. We didn't lose it and whatnot, but it was a tough experience real estate wise. So anyways, so then finally got our first actual house, which is crazy out here because you talk to people out here and they're like, man, California is such a crazy place because, everything's so expensive. And when we were living there, it's just kind of normal, like we were in a 2-bedroom apartment. We were in a 2-bedroom apartment with 3 kids just after we had our 3rd kid. And it was just so crammed. It was just ridiculous. So anyways, that is a decade in review. It's kind of fun to do that little summary. All right, next up, I'm going to go into I'm already in my screen share mode. Remote First Capital. So this is really cool. I saw this recently. Andreas Klinger announced, I'm launching something new, remotefirstcapital.com, a group of more than 50 remote founders, operators, and early investors who together invest in the next generation of remote work. Checks for startups, 25 to 50,000. This is by the community and for the community. Really interesting. I'd like to kind of get involved with this. Turns out I might not qualify as a whatchamacallit. Well, I'm not sure. As a accredited investor, it's kind of annoying. So I got to figure that out. But anywho, this is super interesting. Group of remote founders. Oh yeah, I already read that. But basically, these are people who really believe in remote work and want to invest in tools, startups that are improving remote work, startups that leverage remote work in a unique way. I think this is awesome. I mean, I'm a huge believer in remote work. I talk about it all the time. I think it, like it says here, remote work will become the new norm. And in some ways it already is, but the future is unevenly distributed kind of a thing. So we're moving towards it. And I think this is going to help to kind of accelerate that. I think Commerce Hero is a part of that. You know, we get a lot of people remote jobs and stuff like that. Um, and yeah, I think this is great. I think this is really, really interesting. So just wanted to mention that. And congratulations to them for getting this launched. And hopefully I can get involved in that. All right, I'm going to lean back a little bit, get a little cozy. Ah, much better. Much better. Much better. All right, here we go. So there was a Nocode conference in San Francisco. I believe it was. I don't know if it was sponsored by Webflow but there was a bunch of companies involved: Airtable, Webflow, a number of others, and Connor Finlayson gave a talk on building a freelance marketplace on top of a no-code stack. Webflow, Airtable, Zapier. And I remember seeing the tweet and going, wow, that's really interesting, because I'm thinking about moving Commerce Hero, which is a custom Laravel app that I built, to a no-code stack. And so I was like, oh, this is a great point of reference. And so he gave a talk, got a lot of interest, and then he put his slides online and has a lot of implementation details. So member stack for the membership, Webflow for the website, CMS content, Airtable for the database, and Zapier for workflows. And then when you open up these slides, see if we can get these to open up. How to build a marketplace without code. And goes into quite a few details, which are really helpful. The marketplace he built is called Unicorn Factory, freelance designers, marketers, and developers in New Zealand. And it has some stats on their traction that they've gotten. And then describes the flow here. So Webflow houses the actual website and all the pages. CMS content has all of the different freelance information. MemberStack is the membership platform where people can sign up and pay to be members. And then Airtable is kind of the core database. They've also got some cool reports and stuff like that. And then Zapier automates workflows. So for example, we're going to start to get into some of the example workflows. Great UI. You can see here some of these screenshots of some of these pages, really beautiful pages, listing pages, categories. Even have some cool schema.org integration for Google. You can see that. So just want to show basically, oh yeah, here you go. Check this out. How it all works together, right? Client makes an inquiry, goes into Airtable, and then from there it goes into CMS, sends onboarding emails, goes into their internal review process, tweets out new things. Just, man, this is just awesome. So this is an Airtable form where they submit as a client, they say, here's what I'm interested in. That goes into a messages table. From there, they get a notification to review that, and then they click a checkbox to approve. That triggers it, goes to an approved messages queue, which kicks an email to the person to let them know they're live, and then it kicks it into Webflow CMS at some point here. Yep, here we go. So from Airtable, kicks it into Webflow CMS, which populates the website. Then there's a couple implementation details here, updating the CMS item ID. I'm not sure why you have to do that, but that's appears to be important. Welcome emails get kicked out. Tweets get popped out, which is great. I mean, this is already better than what I'm doing with Commerce Hero as far as onboarding flows, I have to say. So anyways, that's just a brief overview of kind of the core of how it works. Huge shout out to Connor for building that out and sharing all those details. Really interesting use case. No code use case. All right, last up. This is a Twitter feed. I wonder if I should zoom in on my face a little bit. Zoom on in. That might be too zoomed. Try that out. All right. So I tweeted, finally found a cool Twitter feed for Austin area events. I actually had been looking specifically for this because I was like, man, I want to discover more events. I want to go to more events out here in Austin. And there's some, you can search, you can go to meetup.com. There's something, but I specifically wanted to find a Twitter feed that just curated things so that I could just follow it and kind of just, stay apprised of what's happening here in the area. And this is exactly it. So it's really cool to find it. It would be cool. I mean, it is cool that it's tech specific. And of course, I do go to a lot of tech events, but it'd be neat if there was even maybe something that was a little more broad than just tech. But that might be overly broad. So I'm not entirely sure, but lots of cool stuff in here. Web programming for beginners meetup. A hackerspace meetup. This looked cool. I was thinking about maybe checking this out. It's a hackerspace. I got to check that out, actually. Lots of cool stuff here. Go meetup. What's this? Psych Tech. I never heard of that before. I love you. Now read this book. I've never heard the term psych tech. I'm assuming this is technology related to psychology, maybe. So a lot of variety here, actually, even though it's sort of just for tech. What's UPA? User Experience Professionals Association. That's cool. Data Science. Parents Learn to Code. Oh, that's awesome. Parents Learn to Code. That's cool. Learn to Code meetups. Deep Learning. Super interesting. VR. That's another one I was thinking I should check out. JavaScript. Anyways, lots of cool stuff. Music tech. This is cool. I have to say, this is like, there's something about meetup.com, as cool as it is, that it's hard to sort of browse. It's hard to explain why, but it's a weird browsing experience, I find. This feels like a much better experience of just browsing stuff that's all pretty cool. The Kick-Ass PM meetup. Cool. Very cool. Okie dokie. That is all I have for you today. And thank you for tuning in. Hope you have a fantastic Saturday.